Let me
Hello there.
turn some lights on.
Yeah.
Right. Happy New Year.
Hi, Brad. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thanks. Hello there, Tali. Good to see you. Yes, it is a good New Year. So far, so good.
Great.
Well, it's a long year though.
It's a couple weeks in.
Yeah.
Be optimistic. Hi, Melissa. Hi, David.
Long.
Hi, Anjay.
Hi there.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Stephanie.
Just letting a couple people in.
Thanks so much for being here, everybody.
We are very excited.
We are very excited.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. And there's a big SVP legislative kickoff.
Yep.
I love it. Trying something new with my double screens today. Hey, Chris and Emeka and Kathy. And Kathy. We've got two Kathys side by side on my screen. I think people are still going to be joining, but I know we have a pretty tight agenda today. So I thought I'd go ahead and get started. So hello, Happy New Year, everyone. It's the first time I think I'm seeing many of your faces in 2024. So it's great to see you all. I'm really excited. And we're here tonight for SVP's legislative kickoff. It's a chance to really just get up to speed on what we're doing, learn about the bills that we're tracking, why we're tracking them. We're going to learn how to craft our story for public testimony, and then we're going to be joined by Nick Federici, who's just going to give us, I call it like, you know, a little bit of the insider knowledge on some of the bills that we're tracking in Olympia. Since we're so packed today, and I don't know if we have time for everyone to go introduce themselves verbally, if you could just share in the chat box your name, if you want to share your preferred pronoun, and maybe like a question you have for tonight. So go ahead and do that, and I'll get started. I know almost everybody here, but not all of you. But if you haven't, oh, that's looking odd. If you don't know me, my name is Emiko Atherton, and I'm the Executive Director of Social Venture Partners Seattle. And we are a nonprofit. We've got two board members here tonight. If you want to wave your hands, Stephanie.
Oh, no, that's not me. I was doing the church.
Oh, we've got three, because Tali, of course, I'm putting you in the advocacy. So we've got three board members here tonight. But we are a nonprofit based in Seattle that really works. We're a community of people using philanthropy to advance racial justice by sharing our time, our talent, our treasure, and our ties. And let's hope my next slide. Perfect. We have 4 learning areas or programmatic areas. We do grants, we do skilled volunteering, we do shared learning, but really we're here to talk tonight about our newest program, which is Advocacy. And before we jump into it, because I know some of you are new, I just wanted to talk for a second about, like, why do we do advocacy? We're a philanthropic group. Like, why does this matter? And why this matters is this is a new direction for us, but something we're really excited about, because we feel like one of the biggest ways philanthropists, and when I say philanthropists, that's anyone who wants to meaningfully share their time, their talent, their treasure, their ties. It's not the billionaires and millionaires, but it's everyone on this call. That one of the greatest ways we can contribute is really through systems change. That, you know, while, you know, we may care individually greatly about education or the environment or affordable housing, that working just with one nonprofit, while so important, it doesn't change like the ecosystem or really the systems that perpetuate our inequities. And that philanthropists and that we at SVP have some of the, like, we have some of the greatest potential to really not just write checks, and not just volunteer for a nonprofit, but really use our voice and use our power, and particularly our collective voice and our collective power to say, like, we want to change the system. And SVP, although we are proudly a cross-race, cross-class organization, we are associated, we're associated with philanthropy and foundations and groups that are known for having a lot of power, and that we want to be able to encourage all of those groups to kind of use their power and advocate, not just for themselves, but for really the issues and larger systems change. We think that we have a really unique voice in this. Philanthropists are known actually for staying away from like politics and policy, because it's often one of like I think it's much harder to like show up and like, to testify or to put like your political, and I wouldn't even say your political, but really your values in public than it is to write a check. And so that's why we're doing this. And then why wealth inequality? So we've got a couple members, and if you just want to raise your hand, who have been part of this process for a long time, either on our advocacy task force or in our advocacy co-creation, really thinking about like, okay, we want to do advocacy, we're philanthropists. There are so many issues we could pick. We could pick the arts, we could pick criminal justice, we could pick education. Like, we're also, at the end of the day, we're a small but mighty organization. So where can we most be effective? We're not a lobbying organization. It's not like the muscle that we've been working, and we're not one issue specific. But one thing that came up time and time again as we talk to the organizations we work with, the nonprofits, those are grantees, those are organizations we partner with, is that a lot of them are doing advocacy. And one through line, whether they're an environmental group, whether they're an arts group, whether they're an education group, is saying like, we need to fundamentally change how wealth is collected within Washington. If you don't know, we have the most regressive tax system in the country. And that means that those who have the most are paying the least. And that we as SVP, who are affiliated with philanthropy, and we have connections to, I'd say, like big money when you think like big foundations, but also some high net worth individuals, people that will actually pay, if we were to bring in something, change revenue reform, that we're actually like uniquely suited to do that. And that is why, that's really why we picked that. Is an issue that touches really all of the issues that we care about. And we have a unique voice to play within the space. And when we talk to nonprofits we work with, they got really excited about that. Like the potential for our group to say, some of us in this group will pay these taxes. And like, we want to, and we're coming as a collective to say, this is super important to us. So this brings me to, we spent the fall, many of you came to our fall learning series where we learned about the foundations of wealth inequality. We heard from David and Kathy, who are on this call, as well as some other individuals about how they're thinking about wealth inequality and their philanthropy. Then we heard about some policies that are coming before the Washington State Legislature that will directly impact this. And then we heard about how you take action. And today we're here because there's a group of us that are really interested in supporting, and I specifically picked, this is Dr. Stefan Blanford. He's the Executive Director of Children's Alliance. We're going to be supporting their lobby day. They work, it's called the Have a Heart Kids Lobby Day, and I'll have more information at the end, but their former grantee, Stefan, is an SVP partner. But while their focus is on education, they believe strongly in what we'll call revenue reform, which we'll get into more in the bills. So that's just a little bit about the background about why we're here for some of you, because I see some new faces or faces I just met, like Emeka last week. So glad you could join us. And you're not the only one, like you were at City Hall. Emeka went to City Hall and there's one other person there for a public hearing. So yeah.
Just one.
So we're showing up more. So today what we're going to do is Terry's going to just talk about the legislative calendar, kind of some dates, there'll be some jargony terms, but Terry's really good about breaking that down, like what the next couple months will look like in the Washington State session. Is that correct, Terry? Like things
60 days.
60 days. It's what's called a short session. Then she's going to talk about, we want to get a group of us to go support Stefan in his lobby day. Like an SVP contingent is going to go to the Have a Heart lobby day. So how to craft your story for public testimony, whether you email it in, whether you want to come with us and meet with some elected officials. You can also use this in issues you care about individually. And I know when we were talking, you're interested in getting to this. So it could be an issue that's, not on our lobby day, but something you individually care about. And we're going to do a little bit of an exercise, and then we'll be joined by Nick. So just pause there and see if anybody has any questions before I turn it over to Terry.
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you for coming. And I'm Terry. I've been an SVP partner for, I don't know, what is it, 5 years, 6 years? I don't know. Time flies when you're having fun. And I have been working on the task force. And yes, Lobby Day is February 15th. I quickly saw what you said. I'm going to cover everything that was in the chat except for the Walsh initiatives, but I took a note. It's not our specific as SVP, but as advocates, I think it's really good to important to understand that. So everybody go to your reactions and raise your hand if you're new to what we fondly refer to as WALEG, which is our Washington State Legislature. Raise your hand if you are new to it. I see Kathy, and how do you pronounce your name? I don't want to mangle it. Shirag?
Yep, Shrug, you got it.
Okay. Antya and Stephanie. Awesome. Put your hands down. How many have ever submitted written testimony? Stephanie, excellent. Kathy, excellent. Excellent, good. So Stephanie and Kathy, some of this might be a repetition for you. For the rest of you, let's get going. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So what I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do today, it's just going to be a lot of surface area. You're going to have a high level understanding of the bills in target. You're going to understand what are cutoff dates and your moments of influence, because they're specifically scripted moments of influence. Everyone's going to draft their why. Why do you support revenue reform? Know who your state electeds are and how to reach them. You're ready to take action when we send Friday action mails. And everyone's taking 2 actions today before we leave. With that, we're not going to be experts. You don't have to be experts. And everything we're doing today, you can apply to any bill. You might have a passion around gun reform. You might have a passion around the environment. You might follow the groups. They'll send you action alerts. And with everything we're doing today, you will be able to apply to your issue areas as well. And we really hope that everybody here and your friends and others will come with us when we go advocate for these bills while the session is going on. So I know that Kathy, your hand is raised. Do you have a question, or is that from before? I'm going to assume that's from before. Everybody
From
received.
before, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I actually noticed. How's that? So Emiko sent out the PDF, and it has more information on it. And Tali's about to put this in chat, the link to the PDF. And you're going to be able to see these are the bills in target. What does it mean there are bills in target? Well, we're biennium, which means our annual legislative cycle is a 2-year cycle. This is the 2nd year. These are bills that were either introduced last session, one is brand new, and these there's so much that needs to be done for our upside down revenue code, but these are crafted legislations. They've been introduced, except gift card. It has not yet officially been introduced. And we're going to hear a little bit from Nick later, insider baseball, around which ones they think they're going to move further, which ones they think they're, not yet ready for prime time. Probably, I think it's about 2,000 bills get introduced in a biennium session. And I think it's about 200 to 300 that pass. So as you can see, there's going to be this wild and crazy winnowing them down. The wealth tax, it is 1% over your first $250 million. So your first $250 million and not taxed. And it's 1% above $250 million. About 750 families in Washington state will meet that. The wealth tax is a national movement. There are 11 states in the last session that everybody dropped it on the same day. I don't know if there are more that joined this year. They've updated a bill from last year to make real estate excise tax more progressive. The homes here are so much more expensive. And so raising the exemption and then making it progressive as far as what the excise tax is based on the mega dollar homes, etc. The thing that we've done, I know that David noted that as of the latest study, we are no longer the worst in the nation in our tax code. And it is because in 2021, we passed the Working Families Tax Credit expansion. It's been very successful, and it is one of two reasons why we climbed from dead last to 49th. There's a high likelihood that this is going to move quickly because there's a lot of bipartisan support. And this is to lower the eligibility to everybody 18 and over. Guaranteed basic income pilot. There are pilots all over the United States. There's a pilot in Tacoma, and I think a couple of other municipalities in Washington state. And basically, there's all the data that shows people are very responsible, and it lifts people out of poverty. And we'll get into pros and cons here that you will hear. Then we have the Washington State Futures Fund, which is fondly referred to as the baby bonds. And basically, half of all newborns born in Washington State are eligible for Medicare, the mothers. So here we are, a very wealthy state, and half of newborns are born into poverty. And this is sort of a hardest one to pass, because who wants to, spend now for a return that only starts in 18 years? But it's a brilliant idea that needs a lot of socialization and needs a lot of talking about, because then it allows at 18 to 30, you get to use this money in a way that intergenerational wealth recipients do: education, small businesses, homes, etc. The last one is very brand new, and it's called the Gift Card Accountability Act. Evidently, Washington State is one of the few states that has this funky loophole, and Starbucks championed it. And unused gift cards go back to the corporations. Imagine that. They double dip on that. So there's a new bill that everyone's kind of getting behind. I don't know. We'll ask Nick about insider baseball. That was super fast. Look at the PDF for more information. Also, if you want to do a little bit more of a deep dive, one of the coalitions that we are affiliated with is called Balance Our Tax Code. And if you just go to balanceourtaxcode.com/solutions, you can read more about it. You can scroll down, and there are one-pagers, very detailed one-pagers with even more information. And I don't know, Tali, if you can put that really quickly in chat, but it's balanceourtaxcode.com/solutions. You can also see in the PDF we sent out that it does also show all the organizations that are getting behind these bills, and there are quite a few. I am so moving on. and this is gonna be fast and furious, I apologize, but it's all gonna come together. This is how a bill becomes a bill, and there are cutoff dates. And we're all very focused on cutoff dates because it has a policy committee. And if it doesn't get voted out of the policy committee by January 31st, it is what we finally refer to as dead, meaning it won't progress any further. So we pay close attention to cutoff dates and doing as much as we can to call, to email, in order to raise attention, especially with Democratic leaderships, because they really determine what bills are moving and not moving, to get these through on cutoff dates. This is a 60-day session. It's the short session. There are going to be a few key policies that the Dem leadership is going to decide that those are the ones they prioritize. Nick probably knows more what they are. And so you can see these dates are fast. So when we send we will be sending a Friday action mail. And it's geared to take action by Monday morning because everything just goes like that once the session starts. By the way, Tali, jump on and scream at me if somebody has questions in chat and I'm not noticing because I'm not looking. So the most important, this is the money slide. Your moments of influence. So obviously when a bill is in committee, it needs to be scheduled for a public hearing and then it gets voted on. Well, when it's scheduled for a public hearing, we're all going to go to the website and we're going to do it today. And we're going to submit either we are pro or we are con. It used to be pre-COVID, you had to go to Olympia. And if you had a rousing house of support for your bill, you had maybe 40 people show up. Well, now they have 2,300, 4,000, 5,000 signups on really critical key hot bills. So it's much more democratic in that you can do this over the web now. And we will show you how to do that because we're going to do one. So oftentimes it's just you'll get an action says sign in pro, or sometimes it's sign in con. When it goes to a vote, that's executive session, we'll probably send out a mail that says email the committee. Get this voted on, make sure it passes. And then by the time it gets to the floor, you're going to email your electeds and House leadership, and Democratic leadership of either chamber and say, I want this voted on. And those are your moments of influence. So we're going to get a little practical. Okay. Somebody's going to tell me if that's for me. Okay, so I'm starting the action mails this Friday, but actually we already had an action last week that I sent out to those who I already identified. We just mentioned guaranteed basic income. Let's take all of the data from across the states in Tacoma as to how successful it is, and let's make a statewide pilot. And the statewide pilot would be 7,500 participants. Obviously, there's going to be an economic impact to this. And it is in a public hearing in the House Appropriations Committee. And you say, wait, why is it in the House Appropriations Committee and not in the First Policy Committee? I am going to show you. So this is the bill. Can you see that I'm on bill page 1045? Emiko? Yeah, okay. So this is the bill. It was introduced last year. You can see that Liz Berry of the 36 is the prime sponsor because that's her first name. These are all of the reps who have signed on as co-sponsors. This is everything I showed you about it has to be introduced, go to a committee, go to a fiscal committee, then get on the floor calendar, and then go to the opposite chamber. That's what these little dots represent. If we look at 2023, and do raise your hand because I realize some of this we did in the last session, so I'm going a little quickly. We can see in last session, we have an awesome website, by the way. In the last session on January 24th, a vote. It was voted on in the Human Services, Youth and Early Education, and it was due pass. And you can see, here's everybody that said, yes, I vote for it. You can look and see, is your person on it? And here are the people who said, nope. That would be Rule and Walsh, and they're reliable Republicans who do vote against safety nets. Now you can see it was already passed in the first policy committee. And so it is automatically, because this is the second year of a single session, it is automatically sitting in appropriations, which is the fiscal committee. And the chair of appropriations got it scheduled in the first week. And I think we'll hear from Nick about how that kind of stuff happens. That was very cool. By the way, on a bill page, you can see the testimony from Jan 11th if you want to hear what people say when they present the bill, and those who say pro and those who say con. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. That was really fast and furious. And you're all going to practice, because Tali is going to put in the chat a link, because we're all going to sign in pro for the bill for a statewide GBI pilot. And Tali's going to get that, and you're going to click on it, and it will take you to the following screen. Oops, did you do that? Let me go down. Yep, there you are. So everybody, you should click on that. And if you need my help, I'm going to show you on the screen how to do it. You can find this information yourself, but when we do action emails, we just give you the direct link so you don't have to learn how to navigate through the committee to the sign-in page.
Should this have taken us directly? Because when I clicked on it, it gave me a committee and meeting options are not selected.
Oops, that, let me put it again in chat. I apologize. That might have been my mistake.
I think we
Oh,
need
good.
an account.
Yeah,
good.
that link's better. Thanks.
Sorry about that, my bad. So you always be careful. Sometimes they're cons. Why are they cons? Because somebody has snuck in bad amendments, right? Just because it says it's the baby bonds bill or the GBI bill, you really want to wait for an action mail from one of the lobby groups or from myself, and it'll tell you. So we want to do pro. And we're going to put in our information and our address, and we're going to say we're not a robot. And then we're going to click submit registration. I already did, because I always test them out before I send them out. So I'm not going to click submit. And that's it. That is so easy. These are the easy peasy ones. All you do is you do pro or con, your info, submit. I know people, and myself included, where I get action letters around gun reform, reproductive rights, the environment. And so, you know, every weekend I'm like submitting a lot of pros and cons, and it takes a few minutes, and it is effective. And there's a way you can see everybody who's signed in. I'll hang out at the end if any curious minds wants to be like, ooh, show me how. Now we're going to go back to, wait, before we go back, I know I'm going fast. Thumbs up, we okay? Okay, I got a few thumbs up. Can I get a few more? Okay, let's go, because I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing in a bit. So this is an example, so you can have an idea of what this might look like next year. Sorry, 2024. But this is the kind of actions you'll get. And in the beginning, it's going to be jam-packed, and then you'll get fewer and fewer and fewer as bills die because they don't meet cutoffs. And so you can see the easy sign in pro, and then the wealth tax from last year, it's like, oh my God, compose an email. And then you're saying to yourself, I don't want to compose an email. So guess what? The rest of what we're doing today is you practicing how to compose and write an email. So it's easy. This is a quote that I love. Neither revolution nor reformation can ultimately change a society. Rather, you must tell a more powerful story, one so persuasive that it sweeps away old myth and becomes the preferred story. I think we all have evidence of a master storyteller in President Trump, who really is brilliant at telling stories that are so powerful and people believe them, regardless of that he pulls this out of his where. The thing to understand about storytelling is that it's always sort of your frame. It's frame dependent, right? And frames are always based on values. So when we're going to go into crafting your own story in a second, always go to values, right? So when we think of revenue reform, what you'll see from people who testify against or write letters to the editor against, whatever they're saying is gonna 99% of the time be based on individualism and worthiness. Those are the two values that people who are against social safety nets use all the time. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's what I did, right? Or, well, I don't know. We got to make it so hard to be eligible for this stuff because, they might be misusing the money. You'll hear that with GBI. Well, what if they just go buy drugs, right? That's a worthiness value hidden underneath there. So as you think about how do I want to speak my values when I provide written or oral testimony, think about what are your values, and it's typically going to be a lot of fairness values, equity values, but equity can get kind of dicey, but fairness usually plays really well in this space. So we're going to spend a few minutes crafting your story. Like, why do you care? And I'm going to give you an example, and then so that you can quickly adapt it to either written or oral testimony. You can do it to whatever bill, and it enables you to just sort of begin to speak extemporaneously about it. And you can really feel confident that you can just quickly bang through Friday action mails. You do not have to be an expert. You do not have to educate lawmakers on what's in the bill. They'll get that. They'll get that in legislative staff. They will get that when it's introduced. They will get that before public testimony. They will get the analysis of it. They will get the budget of it. So you don't have to think about, I need to be an expert in the bills. No. And you don't even need to think about, I need to be so polished and be like a professor. No, you just need to be a human being, a constituent, and you care. And that's what it is. So some of the tips, I've caught up time and I think we're good. I can take a breath. So when we do written testimony, usually you're going to start with a greeting. You always state your position. I am for the wealth tax, and you want to mention the bill number. I believe I am for the wealth tax, SB 5486. By the way, SBHB, Senate bill, House bill. That's all what that means. So you're going to start at the very beginning. Dear representative, dear senator, dear Dem leadership, whomever it may be. I am for the wealth tax, SB 5486. If you're with, you want to identify who you are, right? I'm a longtime Washington State resident. I live in Seattle, blah, blah, blah. And if you want to mention SVP on these bills, that would be great. Optional. Supporting facts and data is optional. If you have some that maybe isn't out there in the talking points that everybody's using, or you think provides a unique perspective, feel free to add it. But you do not have to do all the education on the bill and provide all the facts. they have people in the state legislature that do that, and the bill sponsor will introduce a bill, so that is readily available. The most personal part is a personal story. And when we say personal story, it's not, oh, I'm going to tell you my deep, dark secret I've only told to 3 people. It's about how you're connected to it. And then in the very end, you're absolutely going to want to say, I really appreciate your attention to this matter, and I'll be watching and hoping that you will vote for this bill. Or thank you for your support if you know that you have a representative who's already going to vote for it. Like Senator Frame is my senator. I'm in the 36th. She is the prime sponsor for the wealth tax. I start everything with extraordinary Senator Frame. Thank you for everything you do. I'm so glad you're a supporter. I got your back, right? This is my testimony on these bills. I did it like in 5 minutes. It's not great, and it doesn't matter. And I wanted to share with you something that wasn't polished so that you can see. And this I need to refine. And if I'm submitting it versus speaking it, it'll be a little bit different. And this is a 90-second version. So, dear whomever, I support the wealth tax, SB 5486. I care very much about economic equity because of my father. He taught me about privilege from a very young age, and that with privilege comes great responsibility. And he always reminded me of the advantages that I grew up with. And I spent many years living abroad in a country with robust government services and social safety nets. And it jars me every day here in Seattle to see all the housing, food, and health insecurity by design, by policy. 2 years ago, a young adult who grew up in the foster care system came into our life. Her experience from life from a young age is of insecurity, housing, food, health care. It consumed and continues to consume her daily life. We have provided housing security for her, and her journey to learning basic life skills beyond survival has started. Undoing trauma is not simple, and I see how difficult it is for her. In the richest country on earth, in a state of abundant wealth, no child should grow up without basic human rights of housing, food, education, environmental security. It's unconscionable to me that by design, we have policies to ensure our fellow Washingtonians are born into a system of survival by design. I believe in hard work. I believe in applying yourself and finding your passion, but I also believe that people are not all starting from a level playing field. Please vote for this bill. Everybody will be better off for it. That's it. So it's not great. I'm probably going to polish it up, but I just wanted to give you an example. And if I had 30 seconds, I would start with something, like on the fly, a 30-second one. I believe in the wealth tax. I believe everybody should pay their fair share. I see the struggle it takes if you're not born in the right zip code, and we can address this and fix a system that currently is a giveaway to the wealthy and make it work for everybody. Done. That's it. Probably not great, but like I said, once you kind of find what's your connection to it, you can begin to adapt it to whatever bill there is. So stick to the point, be specific, be honest, be respectful. Here are some talking points for the wealth tax. And I'm going to have Tali put these in the chat. And I think there's some others I gave you, Tali, to put in the chat, because guess what we're doing? We're now going to spend 5 minutes. Everyone's going to get 5 minutes. We're all going to go on mute. Yes, Emiko.
Oh, no, after you finish your comment.
After we're all going to go on mute. We're going to spend 5 minutes, and you're going to begin thinking about what is it that I can say when I'm advocating for it. And the most powerful is when it's something from your life. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a deep, dark secret. So think of a moment. What is that moment that addresses wealth inequality? And then you can adapt it to the bills, and then start typing something out or writing something out. And then when we come back in 5 minutes, I'll see if there are any volunteers who wish to share. And then we're actually going to compose it and send it to all our electeds about the wealth tax. So, Emiko, did you have a comment? And then I'm going to do the 5-minute unmute.
I have a question. Terry, often I receive emails from groups that are doing advocacy that I care about, and they just give me a template. Why wouldn't I just use the template email that they give me?
Thank you so much. Do not copy and paste, whatever you do. Legislators, especially state legislators, you can have a lot of impact when you hear from a lot of your constituents. We're talking 20, 30, 40 people. That's a lot. But if you use a form letter and it's copy and paste, they don't count it as a separate constituent contact. So if Terry, Emiko, David, Kathy, and Tali all do cut and paste, it's one constituent contact. If you
Terry,
change the intro paragraph, then it counts as a separate constituent contact.
Terry, I had heard a couple years ago that, like, granted they're a form letter and they're not unique statements, but they were still saying like how many people basically sent us that response. So, 30 people signed on to Washington wants a fair taxes form letter. And so I agree, it's obviously not good as crafting your own, but it's better than nothing, right?
Let me rephrase, because David, you're absolutely right. When a lobbying organization submits something and it's theirs, then it's like, yeah, we heard from Fair Vote Washington or whatever it may be, or Economic Opportunity Institute, and they had 500 sign-ons. Yes, they will mention that. But a lot of times, a lot of the lobby groups say, here's a sample script for you to send in yourself. And if you just do a copy and paste, that's not, they don't track that separately. So thank you for that nuance. It's always better if you twist and reshape the first paragraph. The most powerful is if you just, we're going to spend 5 minutes, go on mute, and write something that's yours. Those have the most effect.
And I'll just add, I was a former King County Council staffer, and the only ones I actually, like, if they all look the same, I might have counted them, but I actually did read the ones that were individualized. And I think that's where it and depending on the lawmaker, they're going to have you, somebody in their staff is going to read them.
If all you can do is click, if all you can do is take a form and just change the first 2 sentences, change the first 2 sentences. But if we get our stories around these bills and can begin to craft them very easily and quickly, that is the most effective. So everybody, we're going to go on mute. I will monitor the chat. We're going to be on mute literally a long time. You know what? I'm going to make it 4 minutes. That's a long time. Start writing. Wow, I see a lot of you still deep in thought and writing, and I think it's great. And I am wondering, might not be polished, might not be perfect. I tried to model the way. Is there anybody who wishes to share their sort of draft, like their 30-second pitch or their 60-second pitch? Any volunteers? Tali, how about you? I didn't tell you I was going to do that. I just thought of it. Anyone? Oh my God, don't make me read mine again. No volunteers. Going once. I need one volunteer.
David volunteering.
I have not finished mine, but
It's okay.
my wife's yelled at me from downstairs that I have to share. So, and since
Go
No one else-
Kathy.
No one else is stepping up. So this is really rough. Okay, dear representative, whoever that is, I support the wealth tax, House bill, whatever. I'm a retired longtime Washingtonian who has been lucky enough to have had a great public education, UW degree, and a high-paying job. I am able to afford all of our state taxes with no change in my wealth or lifestyle. But the vast majority of Washingtonians are not as lucky as me. They struggle to pay rent, pay for food for their family, find housing, let alone save. They pay a much higher percent of their income in taxes than people like myself do. We need to move the burden of these taxes from those least able to pay to those like myself who can afford to do it. And that's as far as I got. So I would say,
That's about 30 seconds. Everybody. Go, David.
Bravo.
Okay. Do I have another volunteer? Melissa. Love my task force.
I will give it my best shot. As it's still rough. Hello, whichever legislator. My name is Melissa Johnson. I reside in your legislative district, I hope. I support blah, blah, blah bill. I'm the product of public schools and a family of public school teachers. I valued immensely the education I received and the impact that it had not only on my life, but my community. I struggle that our state does not fully fund our public school system, which is at the headwaters of success for children in our communities. And it is because we have a harmful tax code that impacts working families and our schools and the children who attend our public schools. I believe everyone needs to contribute to the success of all our communities. The tax on extreme wealth ensures our families can have what they need, and the wealthiest contribute to our shared communities just like the rest of us. I pulled that from the language.
Yep, great. Yeah,
There you go.
50 seconds.
A little too long.
Okay, so guess what, everybody? You're all going to send an elected a little, I support this bill. And it can be as little as, I support the wealth tax SB 5486. I believe everybody should pay their fair share. And that can be it. Literally, we do not have to be professors. We are just letting our elected know we care about this. And that's really important. So I am now going to share my screen. Everybody is going to go to Wallage. Stephanie, I know you've done this before, so apologies that we're going over some things, but so you can contact your legislators over on the right, let your voice be heard. Or you're not sure who your legislators are, find your district. You can click right here on the left nav, legislature home, find your district. It's very slick. You put in your street address, find my district. Look at this. They're right here. Liz Berry, Noel Frame, Julia Reed. I'm in the 36th. I want to send Liz Berry an email. And it's going to help me do it. Here's Liz Berry. Here's her email. It's right here. I'm going to click on email. It wants to verify that I am in her district. My form is
I put the link in the chat for finding the
excellent.
district.
So I'm putting this in, and then I am going to put in the bill number 5486. And then it says, I'm going to wealth tax. I'm going to put in the find the bill, and I'm going to say support. My subject is thank you for being a wealth tax champion, because I know she's going to support it. And I just want to let her know that I am very appreciative of it. Now, it's good to write this in Word or Google, because once you get here, I just do cut and paste. Otherwise, it's too hard. I'm probably going to say something like, wonderful Representative Berry, I appreciate all that you do. And let's get this one passed this year. Literally, that's what I'm going to put in here. And I'm going to say, no, I don't need a response. And then I'm going to send my comment. So I'm going to do that. And I want in the 6 minutes you have, I want everyone to do it. Pick one of your electeds or all three if you can do a quick copy and paste. The bill number is 5486.
I noticed when I said, would I like a response? I said yes. And then it showed, would you like to also copy the other 2 legislators in your district? So
Oh,
Nice.
that's the
easy.
win. That's
Good.
what I want.
Hey, Tara, we've got someone with their hand raised.
Shrug.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So, you know, I'm not sure. In the past, I've had to do this for some other things, and they had you just email from your own email inbox to their official email inbox. Do you think it's better to do it through the legislature platform, or does it not really matter for it to be the most impactful?
Actually, that is such a good question because I will share with you a secret. I don't know. We're going to ask Nick, which is more effective because I see that he is on. Yay! But every single Washington State has an awesome website, and it actually you can send anybody an email because I'm going to put it in chat. This is the format. First name dot last name at ledge.wa.gov. So my senator is Noel Frame. It's noel.frame at ledge.wa.gov. Every single Washington elected, that is how you email them directly. And yes, you can email them directly. I showed how to do it through the website because it automatically will link to a bill, but it doesn't matter. Or maybe we'll get Nick to tell us whether it does or does not. But you can copy this first name dot last name at wa.ledge.com, gov. Works for everybody down there. So I hope people are on our website and banging one out. I'm going to do one right now.
Okay.
Well, I sent mine to Rep. Barry, and with that, I'm going to be handing it back to Emiko. I see some people are still kind of looking thoughtful. I would recommend the session is just starting. Oh, great. Thank you, Melissa. I would recommend that you get it down because we're going to be asking you to send it to your electeds, to the committee, to the floor, to Dem leadership. And so to make it easy for yourself to react to these actions, spend a little time. You can adapt your core message to any of these bills because they're all about economic justice. Doing the prep work so that it's easy for you will make it easy to respond to the action mails. Thank you for all your time and all that you do. And we're not done because we've got a special guest speaker who knows so much more than I do. But I hope that you feel more confident now that it's okay to take action. You don't have to be an expert.
Thank you, Terry. That was awesome. I did not finish mine, but I've got it queued up for when we're done. That was great. So big thank you. I think we're all a little bit like more ready to go. We brought Nick Federici, who is a lobbyist who works on a lot of the bills that we are tracking this session, to just give us more of an insider's look. Nick, can you hear me right now? There you are. I have known, gee, I think Nick and I'm not sure what year we met, but I have known of you for like at least 20 years, back long ago when I worked in environmental politics, and which dates me, not you, Nick. And Nick has really just knows everything going on. And we wanted to invite Nick to really give you like what's going on, what are you hearing, and where do you see some unique places knowing SVP that we could be really useful?
Awesome.
And
Can you
Nick,
hear me?
feel free to correct anything I said that was wrong.
No, that was awesome. That was fantastic. I love we all have different slices of perspectives and experiences on this. And I think that everything that you talked about from your experience and the things that have been successful for you are fantastic and right on the mark. And so I love it. So thank you for having me. And my apologies for being tardy to the party here. Got stuck in a committee testifying, and they saved the best for last, and I of course got to bring up the rear of that testimony, unfortunately. So, but I really appreciate you having me. Did you guys have a chance to talk about the various bills that are out and about? Awesome. So I'll based on the outline that Tally sent to me, going to just run through a couple of those things that you may have already heard about, and then validate a lot of the stuff that Terry just told you, and give you a little bit of the insider perspective on that stuff as well. This legislative session is a short legislative session. It means it's 60 days in length. They started yesterday. They'll be done on March 8th. They're very highly motivated to get in, get done, get out, and start asking us all for money for their reelection campaigns. And so it's not likely to go beyond March 8th. The Washington State Constitution sets it so that in years of biennial budgets, they go for 105 days because they have that extra work to do. And in these short sessions, they try to focus on sort of undone business from the previous year. Thank you, Terry, for putting that up. The bills of interest. So, go quickly through some of the things that are under consideration and where those are. As you probably already talked about, the wealth tax is something that's garnering a lot of attention and a lot of possibility. There's conversations about that. It's not likely, because it's a short legislative session, that they'll do something that ambitious this year. They also don't like to raise taxes in election years because that's something that they're wary of doing in general. I would say the things that they're most preoccupied this year is fine-tuning some of the things that they did last year and avoiding the public's outrage. They have 6 conservative initiatives that have been presented to them by signature gatherers, raised by Brian Haywood, who's a venture capitalist in Seattle, who raised money for these four initiatives. 2 of them have substantial potential impacts on the state budget. So a lot of the legislative attention is going to be, how do they deal with that? Do they deal with that legislatively? And if so, how? those two proposals would repeal the carbon tax or cap and trade program and the state's capital gains tax. Between the two of those, that would blow a multi-billion-dollar hole in the state's budget and force a lot of conversations about how to pay for basic services, much less some of the things that are wants rather than needs. So a lot of their time is going to be preoccupied with trying to figure out what to do about that. As they have those conversations, we're also talking to them about what can they do to improve the state's tax code. Again, wealth tax not likely to see attention this year, but there's a couple of things I think that they are likely to consider seriously that I've been working on that are revenue options. Number one is the state's real estate excise tax. There's a proposal that would increase the real estate excise tax on transactions for high value properties, both single family as well as multifamily and commercial properties, and give folks at the lower level of income or low level of transaction a break on the real estate excise tax. But the real point of it, of raising the higher end value properties rate, is to go to affordable housing. It's one of the greatest crises we have right now in our state is homelessness and affordable housing, or I should say the lack of affordable housing and the resulting homelessness crisis that brings along with it behavioral health, substance abuse, and other types of public safety concerns. So that's something that they're very focused on, is what to do about affordable housing and can they dedicate new funding for that purpose. The other revenue option that I think is likely for them to consider is Tim Eyman passed an initiative 20 years ago, probably now, that caps the growth of property taxes at 1% every year. As we know, cities and counties do a lot of the work of government in Washington state. So there's a number of proposals to raise that 1% lid that Tim Eyman put in place up to the level of inflation, or 3%, whichever is lower, a number of different options. So those are the two revenue options, neither of which is particularly ambitious, but would accomplish some short-term goals to give local governments more funding flexibility and to raise funds specifically for affordable housing. I think those are the two revenue options that are most likely to see conversation and consideration this legislative session, and that have the potential to move forward. I'm happy to talk about, I'll stop after each of the steps here to talk more about, or to answer questions about, other things that are on the docket. I am old, so I'm going to use my, excuse me while I use my reading glasses, which is to take off my glasses to look at some of the other pieces. Working Families Tax Credit and GBI really go hand in hand. GBI, of course, is direct cash transfers to low income folks. Working Families Tax Credit does much the same thing. And it has the additional benefit of not adding to people's income for the purposes of eligibility. So a lot of folks like to use Working Families Tax Credit as a way to avoid a benefit cliff for folks. So if you make too much money, you're not eligible for Medicaid, you're not eligible for SNAP or food stamps, or other assistance programs. So Working Families Tax Credit is a way to do a tax credit similar to the federal EITC that gives people a tax break and puts more money in their pocket. The amount right now is very small. The universe of folks that served is, well, guess what? Low income folks who file taxes. What about those folks that don't have enough income to file taxes? What about folks who are undocumented and therefore don't file taxes, et cetera? And so looking at expanding Working Families Tax Credit and looking at guaranteed basic income are another couple of ways for wealth transfer in Washington state, to try to use public funds to assist folks at the bottom income rung, and try to put some more pieces in place to bolster the economics there. Washington Future Fund is much the same thing, but is for kids who are born into poverty, basically, and at age 18 are here in are still here in Washington state and are still at low income. And so how can we not just do things like GBI in the short term to get money in people's pockets, but also over the long term help build generational wealth. And then the Gift Card Accountability Act, which is one of my current favorites, is transferring the money that you and I buy on gift cards that in the end companies keep as excess profit, and instead seeing it transferred back to the state so that it can be used for the public good. Those are absolutely a great range of the issues that are on the table right now in terms of revenue. But a lot of the question is revenue towards what end, or for what purpose, or for whom, and those are some of the contentious questions, right? If we raise taxes, what is it that we're going to put those funds towards? Because in general, as Terry said earlier, it's about values. What is it that people want to buy with public dollars, and how do we make that connection between why it's a beneficial thing in terms of improving the tax code to do various public policy options, and what is it in the end that the public is going to get for that? If I have to pay higher taxes, or if more of my tax dollars are going to be used for a specific purpose, what is it that's consistent with my values, my community desires that are positive for folks? I'll stop there and see if there's questions about the bills. You may have already talked about them in adequate detail, but I just wanted to sort of underscore that all of those are very much on the docket this year, and have bills that hopefully will move forward.
Thanks, Nick. I'll ask the first question is, where do you think, knowing SVP, this group could have some of the biggest impact?
I think normalizing the fact that taxes are not evil, right? From the standpoint of folks who pay a lot more taxes than the average Washingtonian. I think that hearing from folks who are right. I think a lot of public policy gets made, rightly or wrongly, based on individual experiences of legislators and the assumptions that they have. They assume things about low-income folks. They assume things about people with high incomes or high net worth. I think to break out of that mold a little bit, and to be able to help legislators understand that there is a constituency for investing in public good, and for as you articulated, the three of you, I think, that talked about your letters that you were drafting there. That's about, I benefited from the public system. This is my set of values, and to be able to help legislators understand that they have constituents who are willing to support them in that. Right. The three things I always think about is, when thinking about public policy is, what is it you want to accomplish? Why do you care about that? And why should they care that you care, right? So what are your values that are bringing you to this conversation? You talked about value of public education, the fact that you have been a beneficiary of the public higher education system. What is it that is your skin in the game in terms of both how you benefited from the system and what needs to benefit from better investments? What are your values? What's your commonality? Legislators don't always do a good job of empathizing with people with different lived experience. They're more white, more affluent, more likely to be business owners and professionals than the general run of Washingtonians. I think helping them understand that there are folks who look like them, think like them, talk like them, that there's that type of commonality, that you share a demographic with them, and you share a set of values with them that you want them to act upon, I think are important things. So particularly when it comes to revenue, and particularly when it comes to how you want to see revenue spent, I think are very important things that SVP can help move the needle on, because you are, by virtue of being relatively wealthy individuals in many cases, you're folks that they look to as opinion leaders, what we call grass tops, right? Terry talked about how, how to communicate with legislators. And I believe the more like legislators you are, and the more effort that you put into communications, the more they listen to your desires and your story.
Thanks, Nick. And I'll add something for everybody. So, and Nick, this might be new information for you, but SVP has made some really positive transitions, I think, in the last 5 years. And I'd say we're much more cross class and cross race, which means call it, I am not a high net worth individual. But what's great about, so thinking like, oh, I'm not actually that person. If you're thinking that what we are is a group that is associated with philanthropy, and philanthropy, for better or worse, is associated with, I think, well, we are trying to change what philanthropy is. I think it's one of those times that, like, because we as a collective represent that, it carries a lot of power. So even if you are not, like, I know I am not a high net worth individual, I know that when I say I'm with SVP, it brings the power of our collective forward. So
well said. And that meant positive mental association of the organization as a whole.
Yeah, that's great. Another maybe just like insider question, because I think we're hoping to all this is like, we're hoping to recruit people, like recruit our friends, whether they're in SVP or not. Are there specific legislators we should be thinking about targeting that are on the fence, that we might, particularly in King County, that we might either, like, we might live in their district, or we might say, you know what, I think my friend might live in their district?
Well, I mean, the reality is they listen to their own constituents, and if they hear from, and unless they are in a leadership position, they generally, if they get, they live in Seattle, North Seattle, and they get something from South Seattle, they'll forward that email on to the legislator that represents you if you're from South Seattle. So they generally listen most closely to the folks that they represent. And so, as somebody pointed out, that template that the legislative website uses lets you send an email to all 3 of your legislators simultaneously, and that's and that's for a reason, right? They're largely attuned to what they hear from the folks in their district that they're accountable to. They're called representatives for a reason. They want to be representative of you, and so I think always targeting your own legislators, and then if they're if you're preaching to the choir with them, then ask them, who should I be talking to, right? Because they know they're the insiderist of the insiders, right? But in general, the folks that I think it's most valuable to target is your own legislators, because they're paid to represent you, and they want to do that, and they want to be accountable to you, and you need to hold them accountable. But also, once we get into the insider politics of it, if you will, stuff has moved beyond individual legislators, and now is a broader conversation, or a more intensive conversation. The folks in leadership, committee chairs, folks like that are absolutely great to target. But the folks that are going to listen most closely to you are your own legislators. In that, and if in many cases, you'll hear back from all 3 of your legislators that say, awesome, I'm already a supporter. The way I think about talking to legislators and any other conversation is moving people along a continuum, right? And I think of it literally as the 5-point continuum from 0, from 1 to 5. With on one end is the folks that are already true blue. They're gonna go to town on the things that are most important to me. To the other end of the spectrum, which is the folks who are gonna pound the table against the thing that I have that I'm interested in. I look at every conversation, whether somebody's at one end or the other of the spectrum, as an opportunity to move them along that spectrum. If I'm talking to some very conservative legislator who doesn't want to talk about my priorities at all, I try to move them from somebody who's going to pound the table about it to somebody who's just going to be opposed to it, but in a more passive or gentle fashion. If I'm talking to somebody who is a no, What can I do to put a question in their mind, make them an undecided, get them to think more about the topic and not be a hardline no, but be somebody who's considering the possibility of being there. So even if I'm in a conservative district, talking to that legislator to get them to soften up by letting them know that this is a priority to somebody or a lot of somebody's in their community. If somebody's on the fence or neutral or an unknown, what can I do to talk to them to move them to be a supporter, even if it's just a passive supporter, to vote yes, to be in the right place on that, to let people know that they're supportive. And if I talk to somebody and they're just giving me the thumbs up, great, you're on the team. What can I do to convince you to be a champion for that? Don't just be a supporter and push the green button when it comes time. I want you to talk to your colleagues. I want you to evangelize in the media. I want you to talk about this issue as if it's really important to you, the way it's important to me. So that's the way I think about communicating with legislators, and every communication I have with them is to try to move them somewhere along that sort of 5-point scale from hardcore going to light themselves on fire in opposition to hardcore going to light themselves on fire in support of the legislation. And so I think that there's a value in talking to people, regardless of to your own legislators in particular, regardless of where they are on that political spectrum.
Terry, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I just had a quick question, Nick. When we look at this set of 6 pieces of legislation in play, do you have sort of a sense of where the Democratic Leadership Caucus is on these bills, as far as dead in the water, willing to push, hoping to get through?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the gift card bill and the real estate excise tax are very much front and center right now. Those are the 2 bills on this list of 6 that are most widely accepted and seem to be on a positive track. Wealth tax is very much mañana, right? This is a short year. It's an election year. We're not going to talk about something that big and ambitious. So not something that they want to entertain this year. And then the 3 sort of income redistribution items, if you will, working families tax credit, GBI, and baby bonds. All of them have a big price tag, right? And so it's something that they're not likely to do this year, but something that's very much when we can afford it. Okay, so what do we need to be able to afford that? What do we need to do to be able to get you to prioritize that or move it higher on your agenda? I think they're all within the realm of possibility, not a full meal deal, but at least hopefully a partial success this year of getting something passed. And so I think those are all absolutely on the table, but scaled, if you know what I mean. Can we do the whole GBI bill that's up for hearing on Thursday? Probably not. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Can we get a couple more demonstration projects, pilot projects up and running for targeted populations? Absolutely. A couple million here, a couple million there, et cetera. So absolutely.
Thank you.
And to follow up, Emiko, on something
Yeah.
that you said, one of the things that I think, and reframing that to your point of what SVP's role is, I think using your personal dollars in a way. I'll step back. One of my clients that I work for is United Way, right? And so when we come to the legislature, we don't ask the legislature for money for us. We ask for money for that over there. And we've almost always already put philanthropic investment into that and proven that it can work on at least a small scale. And we're asking the state to put additional funding into that to take it to scale, right? I think the same way that you have skin in the game as philanthropists, whether large, small, or somewhere in between, shows that you've already voted with your feet. You've already voted with your dollars. You have skin in the game. What you're doing is you're asking the legislature to do the same thing. I have put my money into this. This is what I have to give. Hey, state, I want you to invest in these things or follow these public policies because it's the right thing to do and it's consistent with our mutual values.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think something else, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that So if those of you who are familiar with the capital gains tax that was really the result of a coalition of organizations, and they're kind of thinking more maybe next year, even a few years out on something as big as the wealth tax, but it's also a reminder that things are like a multi-year effort. So although maybe only a few of these will move forward this year, like you need to lay the groundwork for years. So I guess it comes to like, I don't know if it's setting expectations, but I often think of policy as like a long game. And particularly when you're talking about things like revenue policy. I used to work in transportation policy in Washington, D.C., and nothing is slower. Like nothing is slower. I only do a federal transportation bill every 5 years. So so that's just like another reminder as we think about that. Did we lose Nick?
Nope, I'm here.
Nope. Oh, my screen is just super wonky. So
No
any
worries.
other kind of last questions for Nick before we wrap up? Awesome. Well, Nick, huge thank you. I know we'll be talking throughout session. It was super interesting. I'm just got 2 last slides. So give me a second. Can everyone see my screen? I see some nods. So our strategy at SVP is that we are an organization that really amplifies and elevates the work of our community partners, and our community partners are Black, Indigenous, and POC-led and serving nonprofits in King County. And that's really how we arrived at where we are today. We also wanted to take this approach with our own advocacy and our lobby day. So what we're going to do this year, and I am so excited about it, is one of our, as I mentioned, former grantees is Children's Alliance. Many of the revenue reform bills that we reviewed are also on their legislative agenda. They belong strongly in revenue reform. Stefan is on the Balance Your Tax Code Advisory Committee, and they have a lobby day. It is a Thursday. It's Have a Heart for Kids, and we're going to be joining that coalition for their lobby day, but we will be our own SVP group within a larger lobby day. So we'll be part of all of that, but we'll have some great stickers that identify us. And when we speak to electeds, we'll say we're here and we're representing SVP. We want to carpool because it's fun. I think it's way more fun to drive down together and we can prep and talk. It is February 15th. It's going to run from 9 till they said early afternoon. Registration isn't open yet, but I'm going to follow up with all of you. And if you're interested and want to proactively email me, just shoot me an email and I'll make sure you get the registration. Should be up early next week. We want to get like 10 to 15 people to go to Olympia. I should say, like, when I talked to like Stefan at Children's Alliance, he is like, this is what we have been waiting for SVP to do. And we were a funder of them for 5 years. We provided volunteering, and he is so excited. Some of you saw him speak, I believe in November at our policy panel. So just wanted to put that as an action item, which goes to my next slide, which is save that date on your calendar, February 15th, Have a Heart. I offer to be one of the drivers. And so you can sign up in my car. We meet somewhere kind of central for everyone. I know we have some East Siders. We could get like an East Side carpool going, maybe a city of Seattle and North Seattle. Melissa, you can be in my West Seattle carpool. But I don't mind driving. And I am really excited for this. We're also going to do a check-in. I'll send out something tomorrow on January 24th. Just any updates on the bills if people want to pop in. It's just going to be from 5:30 to 6:30. And then if you haven't already signed up for action emails, and you can let us know right now, Letty, if you can do, we have a real short Zoom survey. So if you can just fill this out. It's anonymous, by the way, unless you put, I guess it's not if you want an email or if you have follow-up questions. I'll leave this up for a few more moments. I've learned this.
This was great. I really appreciate it. It was really nice.
Yeah, and always a huge thank you to Terry. Thank you. You are like a wealth of information. You know like more than I think most people I know who work in Olympia about how state the state policy process works. So super excited. Again, I'm really excited for Lobby Day. Lobby days are so fun. They are like my favorite part of all of this work. You get to like walk around the Capitol, you get into buildings. We're gonna have we'll have lunch together. There's just like a ton of energy. Right. Oh, Tolly's also happy to drive. Yay. Got at least 2 drivers. Great. Well, I just want to thank you all for staying with us on this like super cold, windy night. But all of us, if all of us go, we're like almost, I think we're over. I want 10 to 15 people. We only need to bring 4 other people. I know there's some people who are still out of town for the holidays. So we want to get to our goal of bringing 15 people to support Stefan and Lobby Day. It is going to be so much fun. And
25 would be awesome.
and 25, bring your friends. Bring your friends. It'll be like take pictures. You can go to like your legislature. It's like and maybe like I don't think I'm overselling it. Like it's probably the reason I got involved in like all of this work was going to a Lobby Day because it was just so fun. It's like reminds you of the energy and the excitement and of all of this. So and particularly since we're being part of a larger group. And it's a great way to celebrate post-Valentine's Day. Have a heart. So, Letty, did you get all the survey results?
I'm waiting for one more person, but they might not be able to.
It might be me.
Okay, then we're good to go.
Because I didn't fill one out. So, okay. Well, thank you all, and we'll see you all soon. Have a great night.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for your
Bye.
engagement.